Welcome, welcome, welcome to another exciting episode of Wind Down with Kev. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to watch us on live stream, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you're catching us at. Even if you're listening to this podcast a little bit later, thank you. Also, special thanks to all of you who have already clicked the subscribe and notification button. We could not do it without you. And if you haven't done it already, click below and do it now. Also, big shout out to our sponsors, Carol Media and Canopy Connect. Please reach out to them for all things social, all things digital, and a huge wind down with Kev. Welcome to our newest sponsor, Wintrust Bank. All of that being said, super excited today to bring you this amazing podcast. Our amazing guest today. Today we have a first. We have a first in our series of 50 podcasts with 50 agents from 50 states. We have our first independent agent. We went 25 for 25, all state. That was never the vision. I wanted to also talk to independent agents out there, and we don't just have an independent agent, we have an excellent one. This agent is a lifelong Houstonian, grew up in the Nassau area. His family is blessed to call North Houston home. He's an award-winning titan of the insurance industry. He's also a graduate of Nichols University, where he also played the O-line. He's got a BS degree, concentrating in professional sales. I never knew anybody worked on majoring in sales. More importantly, he's proudly married to his beautiful wife, Dr. Allison McDade, with two amazing children. He's the owner, operator of an independent brokerage agency, McDade Insurance Brokerage Group, LLC. Ladies and gentlemen, put your warm Wind Down with Kev hands together and welcome Charles McDade.
Hey, thank you. Now, man, I feel a certain type of way. I feel like I just got introduced and I'm coming out to the garden or something right now. I feel a little different. No, hey, thank you. I had no idea I was going to be the first independent to kind of grace the stage with you. But by God, thank you for it. I appreciate it massively.
No. You're welcome, man. And I'm glad I'm doing it with someone that's a first and only and a different agent, because I'm following you on social. I'm loving what you're doing. I love your digital presence, which we're going to get into and talk about. And Charles, I usually start this off with fun stuff, but yesterday I saw you post about your granddad. I read everything that you said, and he sounds like such a phenomenal person that recently passed away. And I love to open the podcast by giving you a chance to give your granddad his flowers, but also telling the listeners and the viewers a little bit about your granddad.
Oh, absolutely. Context is everything when you're looking at someone's story, what they've been through, how they've done it. And when it comes to Mr. John, to Ernest John, he was the hardest worker. And someone that was very difficult, very old school, very difficult to please, because those that care about you are difficult to please. They expect more out of you than you expect out of yourself, and that drives you, toward excellence. He was the entire creation of that phrase, "Come early, leave late," whether it ends up being for his family, for his work. That is everything that he did. Now, something that I got to figure out through context was that he knew that he had cancer for the last couple of years, and very few of us are blessed enough to be graced with the knowledge of a general idea of when. So I kind of being in a little bit of my feelings, started scrolling back through and looking and realizing, man, there's so many places that he spent his time with a very poignant effort to make sure that he was there for all of his grandkids. I mean, me being one of the oldest, in the kind of later years of 30, all the way down to about 9, 10. So we noticed that he was spending a lot of time in his 70s playing baseball, showing the youngest how to hit a ball, how to field it. And so we're kind of, everyone looking at him a little confused, because you're seeing a 70-year-old get out here and mix it up with the youngin, right? And you might talk a little bit about, hey, well, wait a minute, just come on back. You don't have to do all that. They don't have to be in that particular position. And you realize quickly that, like most of the men in that era, when they have a goal or an aspiration, it's just movement and no talking. He's just like, no, I'm doing this. They're going to learn. And in realizing that he took his time to spend his last couple of years teaching his last grandson how to play baseball, that's something that was a part of his heart and his soul. He was even drafted into a couple of league opportunities, but he did have a son and some more kids on the way and all that good stuff. So he ended up coming back to Galveston, to Dickinson, to start working in construction, because at the time, right in the early 70s, it's very difficult to make the kind of money that some of these players make today. Yes. And they offered him a much lower amount of money than what he could make working in construction. And man, Kevin, he did what all good dads do, and that's that they put some of their hopes and dreams on pause to make sure that they do what's right and they do their responsibility. And that's really the story in and of itself. There's a lot of people that don't. They say a lot of things, they don't do a lot of things. And he was one of the individuals that just made sure he did everything that mattered to him. And I just want to just say thank you for, number one, opening this up, wishing well for condolences. You didn't have to do that, and I thank you for doing that. And also thank you for giving me a little bit of this time just to speak a little bit about it. I appreciate you massively.
No, happy to do it. And thank you for sharing the story. Very selfishly, I'm not sure what anybody else took away from that, but hearing you talk, being a man of a certain age, and hearing that he dedicated his times, his last years, to not watching the game of baseball with the kids, with the grandkids and maybe great grands if there are any, but teaching the game, then his word, his work ethic is going to live through me, because I have a whole new series of health goals. Love the game of baseball. Have not picked up a bat, definitely not a glove, in a very, very long time. I stand corrected. DJ Carroll Media gave me a Louisville Slugger, but I have not put that bat to ball yet. But hearing this story, I have new life goals. So, Charles, welcome to the podcast. Happy 5th anniversary in business. I read that you started McDade Insurance Brokerage in March of 2020, a couple of weeks before the pandemic. What sort of business vision was that?
A lack of vision is what it was. It was a blurry, short-sighted vision at best. No, exactly that. I mean, it was. I used to work for Liberty Mutual some years back. And I wanted to wait and make sure that I was respective of like my non-compete. They're very specific about making sure that you don't kind of touch the wrong places or do anything incorrectly. So I waited a couple of years to start the agency. So it just so happened that I started looking around and making the decision to start the agency. End of 2019, start of 2020, really starting to find the right places, the right people to work with. So I finally found what would be my aggregator PGI, Premier Group Insurance. For those that don't know, aggregator is just a way of saying a union, if you will, in the independent world. So you're going to get a little bit of help with some training, some access, just some do's and don'ts, that kind of conversation.
Okay.
I wrote my entire business plan. And I'll tell you, Kevin, I know it's insurance has been the same for a very, very long time. It's shaking hands, it's kissing babies. And I realized that in COVID, you need to scratch that, scratch the kiss, scratch that. No hugging, no kissing. In fact, social distance. So we had to go digital so fast. And
Okay.
that was the transition for us. We needed to start posting more, pressing more, and allowing for our clients to deal with us without needing to be in front of us. And I always joke with people when it comes to what it's like being a small business owner or a small agency owner. It's like being on the open water in a wave runner, right? I can move, I can shake, I can go in any direction I want to go to, and that also means down if you don't make the right decisions.
Yes. Is one of the Bible things that can happen. Continue.
Absolutely. So we would have a wild situation of talking to others where they're part of a bigger company, and there's so many moving parts and so many pieces that it takes them a little while to make the transition. So I took the uncertainty as a blessing, and I doubled down on being able to move quickly in an uncertain environment.
I love it. I love your attitude. Love your approach, and I love the how quick your quick pivot. Obviously, you said you were with Liberty for a little while, so you knew one way of selling. You knew the old school networking, be in front of people, meet people, build referral relationships, all of those things. But when you couldn't do that, you start posting more. Which platform did you go to? I'm curious to ask.
I always joke with people about platforms like I do working out. If you love it, you're going to do it more. Yes. Right. So if you love running, you're going to do it more. If you don't love running, like myself, then you're never going to do it. So if you're a person that loves Twitter, have at it. Tweet all day. I loved Facebook and I loved Google, like with Google reviews and so forth. So I went as far and as fast as I could on Facebook, Instagram, and of course Google with my message, because that was where I felt the most comfortable being authentically me.
I love it. And I love that you say authentically you. People reach, they try to find their brand. Am I going to be serious? Am I going to be funny? Am I going to create education and awareness? You have a healthy balance of both. You have a healthy balance of really informative content that the people in the Houston area need, but you also bring a lot of personality to it. How did you carve out that brand, or is that just authentically who you are?
That is the biggest lesson learned, especially getting into the industry right out of college. Well, actually, in college, I started working at State Farm. Don't kick me off the podcast too fast now. Just don't. I know I said the word, but don't do it.
My most respected competitor. Love State Farm.
Absolutely. So I spent a little bit of time there, and then decided to transition over and start moving with one of my friends that worked at Liberty. And with us kind of getting in and learning a lot more about the industry, I just being African American and being in a predominantly Caucasian industry, like that's what insurance is. It's just been the case of that. I tried my best just to be the version of Charles that I thought was most acceptable, right, at the time. And there's a massive difference between the look, the feel, the work of what that looked like and now. Not saying that I was putting on a show for them or anything along those lines. It was, I wanted to make sure I was doing a good job. I wanted to be what I thought, as a child, right, was professional. And that is massively different, from what is professional. And I took a couple of years to figure that on out.
Yes.
Um, so I was not originally, uh, especially early years, right? Insurance is really late to the party when it comes to tech. So we were on the first front end of Facebook getting as big as it was, right?
Yes.
Opening up from college kids to a bigger demographic. All of that required a better understanding of what Facebook was, as well as a better understanding of who you were. So I didn't really get to really understand what that version of myself looked like in the industry until I started really carving out the path of the agency and what would or wouldn't require the most amount of effort. If it's authentically you, it doesn't require as much effort to tailor, to
Yes.
polish, to prune. It's much more free, much more open, and as blunt as I can be, Kev, it took me a while now. Like it really
My big market out there. You're in Houston.
questions. Like when we're putting down and pouring down that much, pad, if you will. Where does the water go? And Houston has seen a transition of not just if flooding will happen because of Mother Nature, but where we're also pumping water and what it does to the people around it. So I'll give you an example, especially going back to we had a tax day flood maybe about 10 years ago or so that people talked about a lot. That was mostly on the southwest side of Houston. So when I have folks that ask me a little bit about, well, hey, Charles, well, is this a good area to live in? I'm like, well, it's great. It does have a history of flooding. It may have not flooded in a good little while. The prior seller may not know about it a little bit because they were only there for 2 or 3 years. But, as a native Houstonian, I know that that's had its fair share, to double check. What we're seeing now in Houston is a lot of the water from up north, like Lake Conroe, that whole conversation being pumped down through and towards Kingwood. So anyone that takes time and Googles some Kingwood flooding, that area has never flooded before. Yet over the past 3 years, 4 years, due to some expansion, my great goodness, that there's a heavy influx of worry and water that people have to deal with, and being able to understand it's not about if Houston will get rain, it's when and where we're going to pump it after it lands, and that causes a lot of worry for us down here. So think of us more like a swamp to your flat land of conversation. We're the swampy outskirts before everything kind of gets to the Gulf.
I tell you what, that answer you gave drives home the point. My wife, for doing the 50 podcasts with 50 agents in 50 different states, was to tap into the value of the local agent and that local expertise knowledge that's needed. So when people generally think of floods, they think of people that live in coastal areas. You bought a house on the water, you also buy what comes with it. But the reality of what you just described is the result of population density, which is also causing it. So when you're someone's coming to you, someone's excited, as many people are, they're moving to Texas, tax advantages, more house, less money relative to what can be done if you were coming to my state here in New York. How important is it to have a local, independent, or knowledgeable captive agent that can give them that knowledge as opposed to buying it from a big box store, an 800 number or .com?
Yeah, and I'll give you a perfect example of that. if you should call someone else outside of a highly complex geographic area. The chances are you're going to have someone that is going to look at a carrier or underwriting guidelines and not realize, well, hey, that's the guideline, a little further north, but in highly complex areas, there's different guidelines that must be understood, right? So it's just like you have someone that has maybe played basketball before, right? But if my life was on the line or if my assets are on the line, my house, my home, my family, I need someone that has played NBA basketball before.
Yes, yes, yes.
And even more particularly, if you'd have played the guys that we are playing before and won, well,
Yes.
then that's the best example I can give.
That's a great analogy. You want a pro with experience, very specifically in the game that's in front of you. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. As a lifelong New York Knicks fan, I'm uncomfortable talking to someone about basketball in Houston, considering what the Rockets did to my Knicks in the mid '90s there. So I'm gonna skirt that conversation. I'm gonna go back to some digital talk, and I'm gonna talk about a digital vendor that you and I share in common. Talk with me about Canopy Connect. Talk with me about your introduction to Canopy Connect and how that has helped you digitally in servicing your customers better.
Absolutely. And I think I will tie it into that prior conversation of, although I know the landscape of Houston very, very well, what I started realizing was the complexity of policy, right? Like it used to be someone says, all right, hey, I have Mercury, you know what kind of policy it is. It's Allstate, all right, you know what kind of policy it is. State Farm, so on and so forth. The problem is that with this increasing level of complexity and a lot of changes, right, in the market, I started realizing quickly that we were doing our clients a disservice by not truly understanding what they were dealing with. We're talking about dwelling coverage A, we're talking about personal property, but again, contextually, what really matters is the contract. That's what insurance is. It's a bindable contract between one party transferring risk to another. So, well, what do you really need if you're going to be a true professional? If I'm going to be a doctor, I don't want to hear that your ankle hurts and I just prescribe you what I think an ankle injury might be. What I would rather is start getting x-rays. And that's what Canopy allows. It lets you take a peek not only of what it is that you're doing in your specific area, but also with the knowledge that you have as a local agent, being able to then say, you know what, with this policy being that close to this side of Houston, I don't know if a 5% deductible is going to help you here, right? It's like, well, no, I was calling you for a pricing question. And I was like, well, I can't do less than nothing, right? Like as far as for that goes, you're sitting here with a policy that you got offline that was the cheapest thing that you could find, and then you're confused that it's not a steak dinner.
Right.
And being a professional, we need to know more like that. And that's what pushed me to try to find a deck page finder and a vendor that could allow me to take my services to the next level of professional.
Nice. I love that. I love that drive, a deck page finder, so you can actually see what's in the contract and expand the conversation beyond price. A steak is a steak, a burger is a burger, but location, quality, how that cow was fed its whole life, it does matter. That is a wonderful answer and echoes my sentiments exactly for Canopy Connect. It definitely echoes my sentiments. I looked online. I saw you were recently honored by the Rough Notes Company. What was that about?
Oh man, that was an absolute blessing. I have as a D1 athlete, you get into a position where you realize that being coachable is worth its weight in gold, right? Taking time, listening, understanding that you might not have the answers and leaning on people, right? I've been able to be blessed enough to have leaned on some amazing people, and because of that, in a wild work of it all, being featured in their young profile section. They're the oldest publication for insurance, starting around in the 1800s, and it's absolutely, it's such a blessing to be able to share more deeply my story, growing up in the NASA area with astronauts, right?
Yes.
My grandfather being a person that worked with them, and sadly enough, he was my maternal grandfather, and he actually passed away from us there last year, also from cancer. So it's been a rough little tumble of it. But being blessed in both of those opportunities for Rough Notes and even here today, to just be able to share the story, the background, because everyone wants to be the person that did it all on their own, all by themselves. No one helped them, and there's so many people, so many organizations, and so many blessings that are discounted in doing that. And the Rough Notes article was specifically because of some very amazing people, whether it ends up being board members like Chris Paradiso or Mike Strumso, both individuals I met in insurance, whether it ends up being them speaking on stage, or them taking a little bit of an interest from some random kid with hair down here in Texas to talk a little bit to. So I'm very blessed to have that opportunity and to be featured in any capacity.
I love it. So you said something really phenomenal that sometimes when I'm doing the podcast, Charles, I have a series of questions I'd like to ask, and then you say something that's obvious that I know my listeners want me to ask. So you reference your background as a D1 athlete, offensive lineman, if my research is correct.
Yeah.
You talked about being coachable. Fast forward to being a business owner and forming your team. How important is it for anyone that's listening to this? They want to get into insurance with you in the Houston area. How important is the quality of being coachable to join your team, or maybe anyone's team? You've worked with other brands as well. How important is that quality of being coachable relative to all the other skill sets that you might look for in a future employee?
I'll tell you that the only reason why I'm married is because I'm coachable.
Well said.
Right.
Well said.
If you're sitting over here and you find out quickly, and I had to find out quickly, when my wife says, "Hey, is the kitchen clean?" I had some assumptions of what that meant, right? That means all the things that are dirty inside the dishwasher, right? My wife, much more specifically, she's asking whether or not everything is clean and put up. Right.
Yes.
So I had to be coachable to realize that bar was the bar that we were headed to. Right.
Yes.
Very similar in agencies. Right. You say, "Hey, I want you to sell a policy." Some people can assume that means increasing deductibles beyond financially responsible limits, taking off different items in the policy, whether it ends up being water damage, backup from sewers and drains, right? Because when there's floods, there's also some worry that there could be some backups from sewers and drains, which is a whole different question and comment. That's a problem. So your actual street could have some flooding issues, and then my goodness, you start having some backup from some of that extra pressure. Being coachable is the most required item of anyone that wants to work in an interconnective service industry. If you're not able to take advice, questions, definitions, and then figure a way to make that happen, you're not only doing a disservice to the agency that you serve, but also the people that love and trust you enough to take time with you. So coaching is the most required thing in my agency, because we all have goals and wants and aspirations, but a lot of coaching requires trust on both ends. Like, I trust you as a player to execute, and the player trusts me that I'm giving positive advice. So it is the cornerstone of a two-way street relationship.
Man, is that an incredible answer. I got to dig deep into the leadership aspect of coaching and being coachable. I am not an athlete. My sons all oldest son D1 basketball, Division II, and then my youngest son was being recruited to play football at a high level before he lost his love of the game. As a player, you're the recipient of feedback, corrective coaching, this, do that. How has your ability to give feedback and the way you like to receive it, how has that influenced you as a leader and your ability to give feedback to your team? Because leadership is coaching, leadership is feedback, leadership sometimes is confrontational if perceived that way, or developmental if presented that way. How has that helped you as someone that was coached for years to get to Division I level? You don't just wake up and say, hey, I'd like to play Division I football. You have to get coached and developed to get there. How has that influenced your leadership style as the leader of your agency?
Well, it's twofold. Early years, dramatic setback, and what I mean by that is when you're playing a sport and you're trying to go for a goal, whatever that goal may be, everyone is pulling the line and kind of swimming together. What you find, and what a huge piece of confusion was for me, is actually getting into the corporate world and realizing that there's some people in the culture, right, that their entire goal here is growing in.
Yes.
Right. And that was so hard for me to understand, because I'm like, wait, so we're our whole goal here is to win. And if you don't win, I don't win. So why are we sabotaging each other? Why are we doing all this back forward fighting? And that took about a year or two for me to really realize that there is some difference. And now I will say this: the other part that I realized is very quickly that some of the reason that there is a difference is because leadership, management, area zone reward that type of behavior, right? Like it's okay that they're putting holes in the boat as long as they're selling enough, right? It's fine. And what you realize very quickly is we spend too much time at the office with the people that we're here with. And if we're uneasy, stressed, worried that you don't get the best version of you, it's very difficult to do standard tasks, right? Like if everyone's felt that fight or flight feeling and you try to go back to regular life and you're a little more on edge because of it. So I think that, say that one more time. Oh, no, I thought you said something. My apologies.
No, you're good. Keep going.
So what I had to really realize was when it comes to leadership, and this is something from Chris Paradiso that he talks through, is having like a servant's heart, right? It's required, because if people don't feel like the person at the top has everyone's best actual interest in mind, then trust doesn't flow very well. So I realized that with me actually living that football, that high level teamwork mentality, that if I can build and find teammates that love and care for and value the underlying trust that leadership actually means, then I think we're going to have a good relationship. And so far, I've been blessed with some absolutely amazing people that have understood that. I've also been blessed with some amazing people that taught me some other lessons about what will not be okayed and pushed through at the agency. So it's, man, is it huge? And we need to stop thinking as leaders that because you're over an agency or over a division, that means that everyone that works with you is there for your benefit. It's the other way around. And Simon Sinek, love that guy. He writes a great book where leaders eat last.
Just finished listening. Just finished listening to it. I wrote it while you were speaking because that's what you were describing. That leaders eat last. If you put the other people first and you're there to serve them, servant leadership, I could tell without asking that that's your style. All right, we are circling the airport and we're getting ready to land. A couple of questions I want to get to before we wrap. We talked about a conference you recently attended. I think it was a combination, and correct me if I'm wrong, of the Big I and the National African American Insurance Association. I think both groups were there. The question is, though, how important has networking with other insurance professionals been to your career?
It is as important as having a coach or a player that has been and seen things that you haven't, right? Preparation. Everything in insurance or business is cyclical, but we like to act like it's the first time that any of this stuff happened, right?
Right.
This is not the first hard market we've ever seen. This is not the first downturn we've ever seen. This is not the first massive amount of claims we have seen. But this is a lot of our first time dealing with it, right? There's some people that are blessed with the ability to have hindsight and to use it for future endeavors, right? And that's what leadership, that's what other people mean. And I especially love getting to know other agents that feel strongly and have done a successful job of building an agency without some of my vision, morals, and details, because you get to understand what about them makes them a great player. What about them makes them a great coach that other people want to follow. And if you get too drawn in to what it is that you want life to look like or that you want your team to look like, you'll miss some absolutely great opportunities for some other things. So networking is huge. Like you said, I am a part and actually a board member of NIA Houston. Was blessed to be there for that, and I am a part of the Big I. Now, more specifically, Big I Houston, so the IAH, so the Independent Insurance Agents of Houston. They host a insurance day every year, as well as how they call it. And there was over 12,000 agents that signed up to come, and the entire day, hundreds of vendors, and a consistent, steady stream of licensed professionals with differing levels of understanding of the industry, expertise in that industry, and being able to realize that just because you're the best free throw shooter, that doesn't mean that you're the best dunker or that you're the best at any of the other activities. So we're able to learn a little something from everyone, and let's be honest about that. And so that's what networking means. It's a measuring stick of understanding.
There's always someone. The beauty of insurance, because we all come from different backgrounds, there's so many people with different levels of expertise. You may be dominant in one area of the business, someone else is dominant, and the ability to pull that person aside and say, hey, how are you doing so well with commercial or life or whatever that area of expertise might be? Charles, last couple of questions. One question I ask all my guests. This is named Wind Down with Kev for a reason. After a hard day, networking, running a business, take care of your family, how do you wind down? How do you decompress?
I am a weird person that doesn't. Uh, it's I enjoy owning an agency because I enjoy testing my metal to the best of its ability. I enjoy being a father to my children and my wife because I like testing my abilities in the best place. It's a rough run, but someone's got to do it. But some of the hardest things in life are the biggest blessings. So, I mean, my wind down is as blunt as I can be. I sing "You Are My Sunshine" to my two children before they go to bed, and I give them a hug and a kiss. And no matter what day has happened, no matter what's been going on, that makes everything worth it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. A little "You Are My Sunshine" gives everything perspective. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about that I didn't ask you about? Anything you're working on, any special project, something happened at your agency, something happened in NAIA, whatever you want to talk about, anything you want to talk about that I didn't ask?
Well, what I will say is when it comes to networking, just like how we said that there's a requirement of other visions, other understanding, other experiences, other walks of life. There's been a big push to say that DEI or diversity in general is just skin deep, and it's funny because it's so much more than that. It's a 30 some odd year old person from Texas talking to someone that's up north, rocking and rolling and kind of doing things. I wanted to call you a carpetbagger for a second. That's just wrong. I just wanted, it felt right. A little Yankiness is kind of how it felt. but it's these conversations, like we're learning a little bit more about each other, about the different places, the different people, and the different levels of understanding. And that's what America is. It's a diverse place of diverse understanding. And if you're in a business or an area that requires the best of all thought, it also means a bunch of different ideas and a bunch of different understanding. So I wanted to take the time to thank you for doing a little bit of that, going to 50 different states and having conversations with 50 different people and 50 different understandings, 50 different walks of life, and facilitating some of that changing of information. And whether that ends up being, a governmental conversation or whether it ends up being just being the best version of ourselves. Kevin, thank you for letting me wind down with you, man. I just wanted to say thank you.
Pleasure is all mine. And to your commentary on the value of diversity, my reply is that every aspect of the soup adds flavor. We need it all. We need the chicken, we need the noodles, and we need everybody's best version of their seasoning. Final question. Every podcast is always the same. Charles, somebody's listening to this podcast in the Houston area. They might be thinking about getting into an insurance business, maybe another business. Maybe they're at a crossroads in their life. They're not sure. Could you close us out, your last statement before I wrap us up? Just giving them some encouraging words about maybe what's sticking to it and being relentless, what it's meant to you in football, what it means to you in business, and how that might help them, or any version of your encouraging words. I'd love to hear it. My listeners, my viewers would love to hear it.
Absolutely. Hard times don't last, tough people do. That whole phrasing. When it comes to insurance and a lot of what happens, people get into the industry and then understanding hits them. Someone trusted you with their house, with their home, with their finances, with their betterment. And always the question is, did you do what was right in that moment? If you can answer that question, yes, the industry desperately needs you to continue. Just because you see someone next to you or across the street that maybe isn't handling themselves the way that you would be willing to lay your head on a pillow at night, doesn't mean that you should hang up. It means that you should take time and wait, because insurance is a very funny place. If you are someone that consistently puts people in a bad position, if you are consistently someone that chooses the shortest transactional route, there will be claims, and they will no longer be able to show their face in the industry anymore. Take the time, keep pushing forward, learn as much as you can, grow as much as you can, because your care, your consideration, your effort towards making this place a better industry is absolutely needed. So if things are hard, keep trucking, keep pushing, and understand that this too shall pass.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charles McDade. Charles McDade. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as I did, I took a couple of pages of notes while doing it. Please click on the subscribe and the notification button below so we can continue to bring you amazing content like this. Once again, thank you to my sponsors, Carol Media, Canopy Connect, Wintrust Bank. Most importantly, thank you to our amazing guest today, Mr. Charles McDade.